So you want to store some items in Minecraft. Perhaps you want to store all the items from a farm like a mob farm that has a bunch of little drops. You want to store them all neatly in their own individual chests. Or maybe you want to take the output of something like a piglin farm that produces tons upon tons of different items in insane quantities. Whatever it gets, guys, this is the guide for you. So in this video, I'm going to be going over ways to transport items and store items in Minecraft. To give you a bit of what we're going to be talking about, timestamps will be in the description so you can learn everything you need. We'll first start with item sorting, and I'll essentially show you the basic item sorters as you can see behind you, and how to, using redstone, to sort your items individually. And then what I think is the hardest part of this is I'll show you how to transport items. So I'll show you how to set up item streams, I'll show you how to set up auto droppers, things like that, how to set it up so the items flow in the hoppers while being in a water stream. I'll show you all that in this video. Also at the end, I'll show you how to deal with items in the nether. You know, I think part of a lot of tutorials, they show you how to build a farm, but they don't show you how to handle the 30,000 items per hour that it outputs, and I think that this guide will really help you do that. So let's get started with item sorting. And to start, item sorting. So in front of me, I have one of the most iconic item sorters out there on the market. This is the Impulse SV item sorter. It has overflow protection, meaning that if the chest does fill up and it backs up, that the whole thing won't break, which was a problem with other sorters. And overall, this is basically one of the best sorters you can build, and this is the one I always choose to build as well. Of course, there are other ways to construct sorters for more specific instances, but I'm not going to cover those in that video because that's too specific on the farm you're building and the space constraints you have, but I'd be happy to help you design stuff if you join my Discord down below. But this is the basic item sorter. Essentially the way it works is, if you do not know, is you have filter items that you'll never pass through the system. I usually just rename sticks into random characters, and these just stay here because this particular item's never going to come through. Then you have the item you want to sort in the left hand. These are also tileable, as you can see right here, and essentially every time it goes over 42, what we'll see is that it does drop out. So if we put a few in there, we can see how it works. As the item in the hopper causes the signal strength to extend to 3, power the repeater, unpower the torch, allowing the items to flow through. However, even if there's a full stack, the reason why this is overflow protection is it doesn't carry over and bleed into this one as well. There were other designs that use it like this, and I do never recommend doing this. Something like this is always going to cause the thing to break, because if it overflows, then, of course, it powers both, and everything runs through. And, of course, that just doesn't sound very good, so always use the renamed items here. Obviously, this is quite simple, and I'll link the tutorial from several years ago down below. However, what's more important is how do you get the items in here? Say your output of your farm is a few blocks down like this, or perhaps it's up there. So what's the way to get in here? What are your options, and what can we do? Alright, let's get into horizontal item transportation. You have basically two options for horizontal item transportation. Obviously, you have other choices, like you can use minecarts, things like that, but in terms of just hooking your farm up to a storage system, you essentially have two choices right here. So first off, of course, you have basic hopper lines. This obviously works. It's rather slow, but it works. Hopper line can transport up to 9,000 items per hour, and that's pretty good going for smaller farms. And I definitely use this in cases like the nether, where using hoppers is just a lot easier than trying to rig up redstone contraptions. Of course, only applying to the overworld, of course, and the end dimension. You cannot use this in the nether since it involves water, is of course water streams. These are also quite easy to use. They also work hell of a lot faster, considering you can technically transport an infinite amount of items per hour in a water stream. Of course, the hopper at the end could only pick up 9,000, but you could run the water over multiple hoppers, and we'll actually show you a really cool way to do that in a second. Obviously, it's kind of a decision between the two. So hoppers obviously are more laggy. However, this does have a lot of entities, and there are ways to prevent this, which we'll get into a little bit more later when we talk about what you want to do with a max influx of items. So with the hoppers, one way to mitigate lag if you do this is to put composters on top. This prevents the hopper from wanting to suck up the item, since it's detecting if there's something in the composter, which is a tileable entity. So you can put composters up here. Droppers also work, things like that. I wouldn't put chests, though. Chests are also kind of laggy. However, another option is, of course, the water to go over the two. So you just have water streams. Whenever you need to, you can put an ice block with a slab just like this, and the item will just slide underneath the water and come on into here. And then you can either have it go into a hopper or go wherever you need it, and we'll kind of get more specific with this. I would only use hoppers for cases where it's a very small farm, or if it's higher up. So say the output of the farm is somewhere up here, then what you're able to do then is just drop it down with hoppers, and that's a really easy solution. However, I would definitely use water in the case when you're going to have to send it into an elevator anyways. It just isn't worth it to use the hoppers because it's expensive and it's laggy. And this is a lag-free, very cheap option to do instead of just using hoppers across the board. So now that you knew the two principal ways to transport items horizontally in the overworld, we'll talk about the other way that I'd like to mention for the Nether in just a second. Let's talk about item transportation in the vertical directions, and then we'll move in what you do of large quantities of items, because that's honestly the hardest to deal with in my opinion. Alright, vertical item transportation. Everyone's least favorite part of build, just because it requires the most effort. Obviously, it's easy to drop items because of gravity, and flowing water or hoppers does the trick very easily horizontally, but you can't put hoppers up, and you can't reverse gravity. This isn't a dream video, so you gotta do some cool redstone stuff. So first off, let's go with the easier of the two. This is the one you want to use in the overworld. I can think of very few instances in the overworld where you'd want to use this besides space. It's a little less bulky going up. It's only a little strip instead of a 3x3, as well as the fact that there might be a use for this in a specific complicated redstone storage system or contraption, but for most people's purposes, for my personal purposes in my survival world, this is my go-to in the world. So there's two options for this. It uses the soul sand feature, basically that causes entities to fly up just like so. And what this means is we can actually use items. So we got a couple options of this thing. So first, of course, you can just send items through a dropper just like so to be sent up into the sky just like this. And basically, this is very simple. It just phases through this 3x3 of blocks into the soul sand, pops out, and just goes directly into the water stream. And if you don't know how to build these auto-dropping systems, don't fret. I will give you guys a hand with that in just one moment. The other option is you can actually feed, instead of having this go into a hopper, and this is especially useful if you're in a situation where you have a ton upon ton of items in the overworld coming through and you have them all coming in water streams, is you can actually just send the stacks of items directly in with a water stream by just having a slab right there with an ice block, and it'll all just go up and pop into this hopper, and that means you can actually go faster than hopper speed. And of course, at the top, you do not have to have your collection there. You could, of course, just extend the water, and this would also work just fine. We can even give that another tester right here, throw a few items in, we'll see them fly up, and yeah, they'll be transported off via that water stream. Now let's talk about the second one. This is a little more complicated. This could be used in the Nether, because in the Nether, of course, you can't have water, so you can't use the soul sand elevators, unfortunately. So you gotta use droppers. So an interesting feature of droppers, if you didn't know, is that if you power one, and we will do this via a redstone block with an item inside, if there's a dropper or some kind of container, it'll actually just phase it up into that chest whenever it gets powered. Just like that. I kind of messed it up a bit there. So we use that to our advantage by sensing when there's an item in here, and we then just send an observer reaction up top, and the item goes up top. It's actually faster than hopper speed. As you can see, the hopper gets clogged up here due to the fact that this moves so quick. So dropper elevators are actually extraordinarily fast in terms of how fast the items go up. Yeah, I mean, instantly up to the top. So this is definitely a cool system. This is how you build it right here. Essentially, you have an observer clock running right here, and you push it in with the piston, and this world download will be down below. And then you just create this observer chain. However, of course, what you're doing is you're only pushing that in when you have items, so that's not always on. And then you just have an observer reading this whole thing the whole time, which then powers the line of droppers going straight up. And to save on resources, you can even put note blocks in between these guys. So, except the bottom one. You need the bottom one there, but you can actually put note blocks here as well. So we push this in, push that in right there. It will actually go ahead and power all of the droppers. So that's how the build it world downloads in the description. And of course, you could have a water stream feed into a hopper, but yeah, you're going to have to get the items into the droppers, which means you are going to have to use hoppers. So if you have more than hopper speed can handle 9,000 per hour, you will need to split that hopper stream, which I'll go into in a little bit of detail later, in order to split it into multiple types of these elevators. Alright, so taught of vertical transportation. Now you're wondering, how do I build these auto droppers? This is also critical, because sometimes you also need to take a hopper output from a farm. Say you got all your drops, they get into a few hop droppers, they get sent off in the streams. You need to get rid of them, and you need to get them into water, because water is the best way to transport items, because it's cheaper, it's easier, it's less laggy. So you want to know how to make these guys automatically fire. So let's cover that next. So we have two simple methods. So I had a couple methods, and basically there's two ways to create infinite clocks. The first off is comparators, which is very fast. As you can see, if you put an item in there, it gets activated, and the way this works is essentially every time it gets an items in there, it just has this continuous feedback loop where it just, runs with a comparator clock, essentially, is what is happening here. So as you guys all probably know, with a comparator, if you power it from the back and do that, you get a very extremely fast clock, because it's constantly subtracting and unsubtracting. Basically the same thing here, a little bit slower, and yeah, you just get yourself an item dropper right there. Very simple, a bit archaic, but this is the one I like to use because it's flat, and you can slide it under one of these water elevators. That's actually exactly what I did over here. This one's a bit newer, and you also could slide it under a water elevator as well. You can face that up or to the side. Is using the observers. So on this one, whenever there's items inside, so say we have a stack, we just have the observers going across just like so. And this is actually faster than this method. So if you don't care about the speed that this comes out and you're going to send it to water streams and don't really care about hopper speed, then this is the option for you, because this is extremely fast. It's just a little more expensive than that one, I would say, with the two observers and the sticky piston. But now let's get into what I've been mentioning this whole time, which is how do you deal with a lot of items? So I'm talking all these numbers, like you want to do speed, you want to get a stack of items out of here very, very fast. And we got to talk about that. We got to think about how we're going to do that. And there's basically one principal way to do this. This actually brings us back over to our storage system right here. So collectively, one strip could operate at hopper speed at 9,000 items per hour. And then this stream could also operate at 9,000 items per hour. So currently we're going to be operating at 9,000 comparators filter per hour, 9,000 redstone dust. But what if we just exchange this? It seems redundant, but now we can actually handle 18,000 redstone dust per hour. If we add on, say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more, we can handle an additional 45,000 items, specifically redstone dust items per hour. So essentially, the way this works is, and we want to filter items specifically. You might not need a filter. If it's all one item, you obviously don't need the filter, but you can always add it. Is you just have hoppers going in the chest, and you have water running over this or some way to get the items to fall into here. And you just use that, and that is what transports your items. So basically, you just want to stack filters of the same type. So now how do we get that? Because obviously it's great and all, but a lot of the times when people use these systems, they run hoppers over the top just like this. But what if we can't, because we're trying to operate faster than hopper speed? So we have to integrate our water streams into this somehow. And there's one specific way you should do this. You could obviously run the water over top, but that way's dumb because you need a break for an ice block every 8 blocks. Not cool. This is the way you're going to do it for sure. So here's exactly how you should set this up in the overworld, and this actually can be used with some modifications in the nether. Obviously, we got to deal with not having water. So basically the way this works is, when you send an item against the chest, and I don't actually have filters set up, so we'll have to take a look. When we send items against the chest, what we actually see is that the hitbox of the items, we gotta look very closely, is slightly over that block. However, it's still able to flow. So let's say we fill this up with items completely. We'll actually see it continues to flow without using momentum. So it continues to flow, same speed over the here. And if we extend this again, what we're actually also going to see is that it can even go under on ice blocks and just continue to do this. So this is the setup. You send it into a double chest, and it has to be a double chest, so it's pressed up for the correct length of time. It doesn't work with a single chest. Double chest just like this, and then it'll stay right here. And you got to make sure, and this is also key, and I already kind of hinted at this, is that you need to have panes, iron bars, whatever is a non-full block that also prevents water from flowing. Signs would work. The items will go straight. Don't have to worry about them sliding to the slide. But essentially, when we do that, there we go. It slides, and yeah, it works perfectly. Obviously, another option, of course, is you can run items over hoppers now. This does technically work. However, you can't have a hopper where the ice blocks is. That means you have to have brakes and all that, and it really just is not worth it. There's definitely better things to do, better ways to complete this, and this is exactly why you want to do it this way, because you can have the ice while not having to take a break in your filter. So this is definitely what I recommend and what I think you guys should do. Now, of course, we got one more thing to talk about. You understand the deal of a lot of items. You can either stack up multiple types of item filters here with, different types of items. For example, the Piglin bartering system, I needed several hoppers for several items. So I need like four hoppers for Blackstone, 4 for Spectral Arrows, etc., etc. And you also know what to do with a single item that you have a lot of. Say, slime farms produce a lot. You don't even need the item filters if you're just getting one item because, yeah, the hoppers will just pick them up and it doesn't really matter because if it's only one item, it's already sorted out, right? The only thing left to do is, how do I do this in the nether? How do I do all these things without water? And if I need to operate at faster than hopper speed. If you can, just use hoppers, use these types of elevators. It's easier if you're operating a hopper speed. There's no need to do the redstone I'm about to show you. But for things like Piglin bartering systems, where the storage is in the nether, my wither skeleton farm, for an example, there are certain things you need to do, and I'll show you a couple of those, but hopefully you guys can discover some more on your own. So let's hop into the nether for the end of this tutorial / guide. And this is how you deal with it in the nether. So say this is the spot where all your items come out. Obviously it depends on the farm, and most farm tutorials I've seen for the nether usually give you an idea of how to get it down to 1 block. That's more complicated. It depends on the farm. You might use pistons to convey all the blocks to one spot. If you have to, you could use multiple hopper systems that drop a bunch of items onto this spot. But whatever you do, say your items, from your cheaty redstone block farm is all piling here. Every so often, what you want to do is just use slime blocks. You can use the same ice to slide items, essentially, across the whole thing. So say, yeah, you just use ice, and you can just set up these systems that every time a big bunch of items comes through, you'll send them on their way, and you can do corners just like this. So what you do is, get all your items. Periodically, you would activate a piston with a clock. It would send them across, and send them across again. And as you can see, if we look, yeah, they went into the hoppers, sporadically, for sure, but they did go into the hoppers. So yeah, this system is really cool. Obviously, all those items just, go in amazingly fast. Honestly, don't even need the 4 tick. That's all there is to that, and that's all there is to this. Obviously, with a clock, periodically sending it in. The one thing you don't want is a constant stream of items. For example, if we did, for an instance, send a constant stream of items, what might happen is this wouldn't deactivate and the items would get caught here before sliding onto this block. So make sure it's not like a constant flowing stream of items, but that'd be really hard to achieve given the fact that it's going to be clock operated. All of this is going to have to be controlled by redstone, so make sure you're not just like sending items this direction constantly, but that will probably be very hard to actually achieve that in the nether anyways. So that's kind of a minor concern. But same setup, chests, you can also use honey blocks. That applies to the overworld too, as you can use ender chests. You can actually just use a single ender chest if you want. But very simple deed. This is how you deal with items in the nether. Of course, what you can always do is send the items through another portal and capture them. You can actually see my Piglin bartering tutorial for how to do that specifically and how that kind of works. So feel free to check that out as well. But I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. I covered a lot of stuff, so if you do need a hand understanding, feel free to join my Discord, ask in the comments down below. I'll be linking a tutorial for the item sorter since that's what was specifically mentioned, as well as the Piglin bartering system, since it shows transporting items using nether portals from the nether to the overworld. But the rest of this can be found in the world download, all these little designs, very simple to build. So I wish you luck, hope you enjoyed this guide, I had a lot of fun making it, and yeah guys, I gotta edit this video because it's supposed to come out tomorrow, and it is kind of ticking down. Exams suck, that's all I gotta say. Alright guys, peace out, see you later. Have an easygoing day. I'm confusing myself. Okay, goodbye.